Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited that you are here. Now, we have been in a series called I Choose, and we've walked through the first couple weeks, and here's what this series is all about. We are wrestling with the decisions that we make because we truly believe, and I think God teaches us this, that we are defined by the decisions that we make. That's why God gave us free will. And so there are, I think, some pretty major decisions that God, what? Oh, you're fine. Well, hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited that you are here. And we are continuing in our series, I Choose. We've been wrestling with the first couple weeks just with some big decisions. But this is what this series is all about. We believe, and I think God teaches us, that the decisions that we make define our lives. That's why we've been given free will. That's why God gave it to us. And so we've been wrestling with these decisions that are critical to our lives. And so what we're going to wrestle with today, I just simply need to ask a question. How many of you, and it's not like maybe it's constant or maybe it is, how many of you are control freaks? Maybe you've had that moment where you freaked out because you were out of control, or just think about that of just how much you enjoy having control, or you've had moments where it's not great. But to kind of help us get into understanding this, I have a video for you that I think you'll enjoy of a dog who has a problem. This dog does not want to share the pizza. He is in control of it. So watch how this plays out and the trouble that it causes.
He's like, what's that? Look at cute.
Yeah. I know, let's just be honest. There may have been a few moments where I acted like that in regards to the food that was being served or the pizza. You may have had some moments. The reality is this. We all love to be in control. And sometimes that makes us to be control freaks. And so here's where the big decision that we're wrestling with today, and that is surrender over control. It's learning to choose surrender over control. Because the reality is, like I said, we like it. I mean, how many of you, just to give you some funny examples, how many of you are a baby at school or you're writing something and you have a certain pencil or a certain pen you have to use? Or maybe it comes to like when you're listening to music, there has to be a certain headphones that you have. Or even another example, you have to have your clothes just a certain way, just folded the right way, or certain laundry detergent, whatever it is. And you can think of other examples. I know I have my own. One of the ones that I can't even believe I'm sharing this with you. When it comes to mowing the lawn, because I am a homeowner and so I have to mow the lawn, I can't mow it the same way every week because I try to mow it once a week. It has to be horizontally, then it's vertically, then it's at a diagonal. I cannot mow it the same week like that I did last week. I just can't do it. And I know you're probably laughing at me and going, that's just weird. I get it. But we all have it. And control is kind of one of those things in life that we try to fight for and try to get. But here's the danger when it comes to control. Here's kind of the cycle that can start to happen when it gets bad. So the more we try for control, we get afraid of losing it. I mean, you've probably had that moment. You had control. You're like, man, this is great to be able to control the situation or control this or control that. But then you go, I'm scared of losing it now. And then the more we become afraid, this fear starts to set in, the more we fight for control. And so you see this nasty cycle that begins to take off where we constantly are fighting for more and more and more control. And here's where it gets dangerous. We start to try to control our friends, start to try to control our circumstances, and we start to try to control things that we actually have no control over. Now hear me, there are certain things that we do control, and we need to be able to go, okay, that's my responsibility. I need to take care of that. But too often, we're stepping into things that we don't have the ability to control it, but we sure act like it. And so to kind of help us walk through this a little bit, I want to share a story with you where control got bad. It created so much dysfunction. And then I want to show you how surrender actually changed those dynamics. So let's start with the control part. So here's the situation. Here's the people you need to know in this story. So you have Jacob as the main character. You have his brother Esau, his father Isaac, and his mother Rachel. So the way the Jewish family works at this time is that there is a blessing that the father gives to the oldest son. And this is a big deal because back then, it was kind of like the oldest son, got everything. If you study the Jewish culture, it was kind of like they got the inheritance. Now, some of the others got some, but the oldest brother, the oldest boy, got the most. That's why you'll see, if you read your Bible, notice the kingdom. So the kings always handed the kingdom over to the oldest son. And so this blessing is a huge deal. And so Esau is the older one, just slightly older than Jacob. And so it's getting that time. Isaac's getting older. Esau's becoming a man now, and they're ready to kind of pass it on. And so Isaac tells Esau, hey, I want you to go out and kill an animal. I want you to bring it, make him dinner, and we're going to have this moment to where I'm going to give you the blessing. Now, the mother, Rachel, hears about this. And all of a sudden, there starts this plan. Because for some reason, she believes that Jacob is the one that deserves it. And so Jacob and her start having these conversations while Esau is out trying to make dinner for his dad. And they're like, okay, how do we get it to where you get the blessing? And so mom comes up with this crazy plan to where they're going to trick dad. And she presents it to Jacob. So you've got this moment where Jacob could answer it in whatever way. Maybe he's saying, Mom, this is nuts. We shouldn't do this. But look at what he says. Look at this. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, but my brother Esau is a hairy man while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I need to start over. The fact that I called her Rachel the whole time bothers me now. It is Rebekah. Ridiculous. Do we need to get this back? Hey everyone, so excited that you're joining us today, and I just want to go ahead and just get right into it. We are continuing in our series called I Choose. This series, we've been wrestling with the decisions that we make in our lives and how they define our lives. Because we believe that is true, and we believe God teaches us because God gave us free will, which gives us the ability to choose and make decisions. And so that's why we've been going through this series where we're wrestling with the big decisions that we think God is teaching us and the importance of making the right decision in this. So last week, we talked about important over urgent. And so this week, here's what I want you to be wrestling with. Answer this to yourself. Don't answer it out loud. Are you a control freak? Maybe it's not all the time, but maybe little moments of your life where you're like, I really want to be in control. Now, to help us understand where this may become a problem, I have a video for you of a dog who has a big problem controlling who gets pizza because he thinks it should all be for himself. And so it's getting a little out of hand, and he's not sharing, and I just want you to see the problems that come with being this much of a control freak. So watch this.
He's like, look at you.
Now, I've seen some of you act that way when it comes to pizza, so you might be going, what's the problem? That's normal. You got to protect your food. Well, it's a little crazy. Let's be honest. And so if you're wondering, like, what are we talking about tonight? Here's the choice that we're wrestling with. It's surrender over control. The truth is, as much as we may not like to admit it, we do enjoy control in our lives. And hear me, control is not always bad. There are moments where we need to go, this is my thing to control, I need to do it. But too often we try to control every aspect of our lives. And choosing surrender is a huge part to making the right decision. And so to kind of even give you examples of being like, oh, well, how do I know if I like control? Or just simple questions. Is there a time where maybe you're needing a pen or a pencil to write something and you're very particular about what pen or pencil you're using? Or maybe you have a very, like, if I'm going to listen to music, there's a certain headphones I need to use. Or when it comes to your clothes, there's certain laundry detergent, or it needs to be folded a certain way, or it needs to look a certain way. That maybe you having some control issues. I know for me, I've got my own. When it comes to mowing my lawn, I do it once a week. I can't mow it the same way I did last week. So that means I mow it horizontally, vertically, and diagonally, and I am in a rotation. And you all are looking at me like, you're crazy. And I go, I know, but that's just what I do. But you can look at control, and this is where it becomes possibly dangerous when we start to try to control relationships. I mean, trying to be like, control your family, control your circumstances, maybe controlling things even at school. And we try to control things that we actually have no control over. And that's where it gets scary. See, when control gets bad, look at this nasty cycle that it creates. So if more we try to control, it leads to us being afraid of losing control. Like we grab onto things like, okay, I've got this. This is not going to change. My circumstances are going to stay the same. I'm not going to lose the starting position. I'm not going to lose this friend. Things sometimes you can't control. And you get afraid of losing it, and it makes you crazy. And then the more afraid we become, this fear starts to set in, the more we try to control. And it is just this constant cycle. And so then it becomes a spot to where control can lead to a horrible situation. It can lead to dysfunction and put hurt and pain in all your relationships. And so to kind of help us walk this out, here's what I want to do. I want to walk a story out with you that you can go, all right, that's where it was bad, where control was taking over, but then show you where surrender took over and healing began to happen. So here's the characters you need to know. There's Jacob, he's the main character. There's Esau, his older brother. There's Isaac, his dad, and Rebekah, his mom. Now, these characters all play into the story, but here's what's going on right now. So in Jewish tradition, the way it worked is that when the dad was getting old, there was this time where he would pass on whatever he owned, passed on everything he had to his sons and daughters. And the oldest son was the one that usually got the most. If you were to study the kings in the Jewish nation, you would notice that the kings would always pass the kingdom over to the oldest son. And so there was this blessing that would happen that always went to the oldest son of here's what is going to be given to you. It's special. No one else is going to get this. This is because you are the oldest. That's just the way it worked. Now some of you might be thinking, well, that's unfair. Some of you are the oldest going, that sounds great. But whatever the case may be, that is how it worked. And so Isaac at this time is now getting to a point where he's old. He can't even see that well. And he's like, okay, it's time. I need to give the blessing. And so he tells Esau, hey, here's what I want you. I want you to go prepare a dinner for us. And that meant like, go kill an animal, get it all prepared, and take care. Like it was going to take some time. So Rebekah, the mom, hears this. And I don't know if she had something against Esau, but she thought Jacob, the younger one, deserved it. And so she comes up with this plan of how they're going to trick Dad. And so that Jacob can get the blessing. Now, here's the thing. You need to understand, I'm about ready to share a verse with you because the mom comes up with all the plans, shares it with Jacob, and Jacob has a decision in that moment. Am I going to walk with this and go down this route of controlling this blessing and doing whatever it takes to get what I want? Or he could say, Mom, this is wrong. We shouldn't do this. If I'm supposed to get the blessing, then God will make it happen. We'll surrender it to him. That's the choices he had in front of him. Here's what he decides to do. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, but my brother Esau is a hairy man while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him. It would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing. You notice he doesn't say, we're not going to do this. He actually goes, Mom, there's a problem with your plan. We need to do this. We need to put some more hair on me so that way when Dad, who can't see well, because he's just going to base it off of him touching the arm and know whether it's Esau, because Esau was very hairy compared to Jacob. And so Jacob's now going with this and even controlling the situation more. And so here's what happens. They trick Isaac. And Jacob has the dinner ready with the help of his mom and have it, and the blessing is given to Jacob, and Jacob is just leaving the tent, and Esau's bringing it in, and Esau's like, oh, hey, Dad, I'm ready. And you could just imagine what Isaac was feeling. Like, wait, who are you? What just happened? Just that sinking feeling when Esau started to pick up, like, wait a minute, you already gave the blessing? The thing that's mine, my inheritance? What do you mean you gave that away? How frustrating that would have been. Because even with control, you think about it. There's moments that we can't control. Esau couldn't control that situation. And now he's been stuck with this. And you may think, like, why can't they change it? Back then, it's just as once the blessing was given, it was given. And so Jacob has deceived his brother, deceived his dad. His mom was in on it. And look what Esau decides to do. Because, listen, he could go, I'm going to give this to God, I'm going to surrender it to him, and I'm going to learn to forgive. Or he's going, I'm going to figure out how to take this back. So here's what he decides. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. All of a sudden, he decides to take control of the situation in such a unhealthy way. You think about it, both of them have now made controlling decisions that did what? Created dysfunction in the family. Now Jacob and Esau, who are brothers, can't even be in the same room, even in the same area. One wants to kill the other. And Jacob is now run away. He knows he can't be in his family's home anymore. Can't live around that area. So the family's broken up. They're left with betrayal, hurt, all of that because they chose to control the situation. One of them wanted the blessing, and now one of them wants them dead because they stole the blessing. So I want to ask you this. What is it in your life that you're trying to control? Just think about it and process it. What is it that you need to name that you're like, that's what I'm trying to control? Maybe you're trying to control the circumstances to get what you want. Maybe you want to be the top first chair in band or the top player, and you're actually trying to manipulate and make the other people look bad. Maybe you're trying to become someone's friend and you're gossiping about the other friends so that they will trust you and become your friend instead of becoming others. See, we can try to control situations, but the danger is we start to really hurt the people around us if we do. So what is it that you're trying to control? And then process, what if I gave it over to God? I know for me, I wrestle with that. Giving over to God, like, okay, me being a parent. There's times where I would love to be able just to control my kids. Well, that's not the best way. Or even my wife be like, why can't you just do this? But it's not the right thing. So naming that thing, but here's what God says. If he says you're willing to surrender, look at this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and catch this last part, and he will make your path straight. He will guide you and lead you to where you're not left with this pile of dysfunction, this path behind you that's just full of hurt and pain that you may have caused other people or people have caused you. And so you may go, okay, I get it. Control is not the right decision, but God, it's so hard to choose surrender, and how do you do it? Well, let me walk out the other side, because there came a point to where God spoke into Jacob's life, because now it's been years since this has happened. And here's what God told Jacob. Look at this. The Lord said to Jacob, go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. God says, I need you to go back home. Now, you know what that means. If he goes back home, you know who's there? Esau. Once again, Jacob's got a choice in front of him. Do I surrender to God and trust him? Or, do I say no to God and go, God, you're crazy. There's no way I'm going back. I can't do that. You know what's going to happen. I'm going to die. And so Jacob has this decision, and he chose in this moment to surrender. And he said, all right, God, I'll go back home. Now, circumstances surrounding weren't great, so there was this kind of like, I hope this works because what's going on here is not working either. And so Jacob makes a decision, and think about the prayers that he had. Think about that decision, because now he's got a family with him. And he's like, man, I hope this works. I hope this works. I hope this works. And they get close. They are just right on the line of stepping into his family's territory. And he hears that Esau is bringing 400 men. And so you can imagine, Jacob's got his family there with him, and he's like, oh man, my brother's coming. This is what's going to happen. We're all going to die. What am I going to do? He's going to get revenge. God, you told me to do this. What is going on? I mean, have you ever been in that moment where you feel like you're trying to do the right choice? You surrendered, and now it's like, this seems to be backfiring. And there has to be this moment where you go, okay, I got to trust, because Jacob decides to trust, and eventually Esau sees him. And there comes this moment where they're coming closer and closer, and Jacob is waiting like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? So here's what happens. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Like, those words don't even do it justice. To show the picture of that, just think of the animosity, the pain that is now healing. The forgiveness that is now being exposed and going, I care about you. I want to build this relationship again. See, Esau also made a surrendering decision. He chose to forgive. He chose to give Jacob a second chance. See, choosing surrender gives the ability for God's power to be shown. I'll say it even this way. Choosing surrender gives us access to God's life-changing power. Here's what I know. If you choose to even give your life over to God and say, God, I can't seem to figure out my life on my own. I've been trying to control it, but God, I give it over to you. You get this power that is life-changing. Where he goes, do you know that my son, Jesus Christ, died on the cross and rose from the grave so that you could conquer sin, you could conquer death, and you could live life to the full if you're willing to surrender. That's the life-changing power. And it just doesn't stop there. Like, even in your family situations, even at school, no matter where you're at in life, I will give you this life-changing power if you're willing to listen to me and surrender. So to help us begin to go, okay, I want that life-changing power. How do I begin to walk out choosing surrender? There's 3 questions I want you to wrestle with. Here's the first one. Is it worth my concern? Is it worth my concern? It's a simple question. And there are a lot of things in life that may be off or may not be working, but you just need to simply go, is it worth my concern? Students, let me help you. Let's say there's a fight or some drama going on between maybe 2 of your friends or 2 people at school or wherever you may be. Is it worth my concern to go get involved? It may not be. Maybe your mom and dad are fighting. Is it worth my concern to go get involved? It may not be. And so that's why you need to wrestle with, okay, God, is it something I should get involved in? Is it worth my concern? And if the answer is no, then stay out of it. That's you going, I don't need to go fix that. I surrender that to God. I surrender it to those people, and they can figure it out. I think too often we get involved in fights or involved in arguments that we shouldn't be involved in. So that's the question you got to wrestle. Is it my concern? Here's another one. Is it mine to control? Now this is the flip of the other one. Because there's going to be times where you're going to have responsibility. I look at Jacob and Esau. When they made the surrendering moment, that was a time they had to take control. Jacob had to be like, yep, God, I'll do it. I will go back home. Esau had to wrestle with, okay, God, you're right. I need to choose to forgive. See, those are things that we can control, and we choose to do that. But I would make sure that those things are, once again, coming from God. So you've got to wrestle with, okay, is it worth my concern? Is it mine to control? And there's one last question. Is it for God alone? There are some things in this world that only God can fix. And only God can do it. The reality for me is I can't save students. I can't save the people I interact with. Only God can do that. And if I try to control that situation, it's going to get bad. If I try to force someone to believe in Jesus, that's not going to work. See, that's for God to do. And that's where sometimes we step in and try to control things that we can't control. I mean, the reality is I know some of you are dealing with broken homes, broken families. Recognize God alone is the one that can fix that. He's the one that can maybe bring your parents back together or heal the family and be able to go, okay, we're going to move forward. See, that's God alone. You can't control that situation. Only God can. But what you can control in those situations is the choices you're going to make. And I think it's important that we recognize choosing surrender is important. To give you kind of like, okay, how does this play out? Look at this. This is the way I would sum up my whole sermon right here. When you try to control what you can't, anxiety takes over. That's a way to know if maybe you're trying to take control of something that's not yours. You've got a lot of anxiety in your life. Constantly worried, constantly afraid, constantly in fear. Because I know this is to be true. Give you an example. If you're trying to hide something from your parents because you're trying to control a situation so you don't get caught, what does that create in your life? Anxiety. Cheat on a test and you're trying to keep it from the teacher and lie and cover it up, whatever the case may be. Anxiety takes over because now you have to possibly create more lies and make sure it's covered up more and more. And you live this life that's so full of fear and anxiety because you're trying to control it all so you don't get caught or you don't have to do certain things or your circumstances. But if you give it over to God, peace takes over. You live a life that goes, I'm not scared of anything being exposed. I'm being real. I'm being authentic. I have peace. And students, I wonder how many of you need that peace. I know for me, I struggled with this because I've had moments where I've lied to my friends, lied to my parents, just to control the situation, just to manipulate the situation. And all it created in my life was anxiety. I was more scared about being punished or being caught and not realizing how that was going to affect my life long term of the anxiety. Instead of just being honest and being willing to face and say, God, I surrender it to you, and the peace that took over. Now hear me, when you surrender stuff, that doesn't mean it's just going to be an easy journey after that. It's going to be some tough decisions like forgiveness, like coming clean. But remember, go back to that verse in Proverbs. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. See, God promises to be there. And so question is do you trust him? Because I think in order to surrender to God, you've got to trust him. And I hope that we will be a group of people who start to live out a life that goes, God, I give it to you, and I trust you with it. And it scares me, but there's also peace that comes with it. Instead of being those who try to go, I'm going to try to control it, because I think many of us have tried to, and it backfires. It fails. That's why I gave you the example of Jacob and Esau. You got to see what control looked like, but also see what surrender looks like. So a simple question to end our time. Are you choosing surrender or control? And I think some of you may be like, this is my first time really surrendering my life over to God. I tell you, it'd be the best decision you ever make. Because you'll start to walk out a life that you go, I'm proud of who I'm becoming. I'm amazed at the peace. Is it easy? No. But God is teaching me a life that is full. Teaching me a life that is overcoming my sin, and my issues, my problems in my life. And even the promise of being able to overcome death by knowing I can spend eternity with God. And so here's the deal. I want to give you a moment where you can choose to surrender. And so if that's you, I simply want you to pray with me. So let's all go ahead and close our eyes, bow our heads, and let's talk with God. If you're in the room and you're wanting to surrender your life, here's what I simply want you to pray. God, my life is yours. God, I ask for your forgiveness in trying to control my own life. It's not working, and I've hurt the people around me in doing so, even hurt myself. So God, I give you my life, and I pray that that peace comes with it, and I'll keep making this decision of choosing surrender over and over again. And God, I pray for everyone. Lord, may we recognize that this decision will either lead to destruction in our lives and unhealthiness in our lives, or it can lead to healing and healthy and things that we need to learn and value. And so may we recognize how big this decision is. And Lord, may you teach us to surrender. May we wrestle with those questions of, is it my concern? Is it mine to control? Is it God alone? And so God, we give you our lives. We give you who we are. And I pray for everybody, because they may be at different areas in this. And some of them are trying to choose surrender, but it's so hard. And some of them may be wrestling with even giving their life over to you. But I pray for those who just did in this moment. May they be in awe of who you are. And may they fall in love with their Savior, the one who taught us about forgiveness, about love, about a healthy life. God, we thank you for that. And we ask all this in your name. Amen.